this is where we get into the aliens.
That's
If you believe that the aliens seeded various colonies throughout the planet, which I do, I'm just going to go there. And
me too.
We'll talk about why that's true later. Then you have Africa, because everyone's like, oh, everything happened in the Mesopotamian basin. Could be true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of, yes. And then I thought about the aliens, so I'm like, no, they just made little pods. That's why everybody looks so different, because they're like sort of tweaking the genes a little bit. Or like, okay, this one looks like that.
Yes.
And then the Joseph Campbell thing, where everybody sort of knew all the same things at the same time. I'm like, it's because of the aliens.
Totally. I love it. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think it's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. And if no one knows what I'm talking about, we'll just put links below, because we have to have entirely discussed all sorts of podcasts. The other thing we should do is introduce our show now.
Okay.
Welcome to Flow Getter. All right. I'm Lisa. That's Erica. All right. Hey.
Hey. How's it going?
Hey. Okay. Okay. Do I have smoothie mustache? Because sometimes I get like smoothie thing.
You don't, but if you do, okay. So this kind of goes back to my whole thing on feelings, right? And emotions, and how we can use those as our kind of internal map to get to where we want to be. And, you know, my mind tells me I need to do this thing. My body is kind of resisting the thing that's in my mind and wants to go a different direction, but my mind can't get out of this thing over here. And so I think, I know that letting go of, you know, or like kind of what we talked about in an earlier podcast about allowing our minds to be more observant, more, you know, more learning, observant kind of thing versus making choices, and allowing our bodies,
great reminder,
to be our guide, I think is going to get us to a place of happiness. And so I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay. I'll grab the train.
Thank you.
Jump on this train. So basically, when you're feeling like, when you're not really following your own inner guidance, you can get stuck with trying to figure out how to be happy. And we say happy, not so much like blissed out, but just peaceful, content, satisfied, you know, things that a human being deserves, right?
Absence of discomfort.
Yeah, absence of and life is going to give you stuff, and that's good for you too. But ultimately, you know, it's I know our trains have just run away. Yeah, we're like, welcome to this moment is brought to you by menopause, where we just stare at deer in headlights into the screen and be like, oh, dear.
I love you.
So okay, get back on that train.
So here's the thing, guys.
We're hijacking a train.
And we're going to go in a different direction, because here's the thing. Okay, so
what can people learn from us right now, other than I don't want to be old and lose my mind is the first thing. But what else can people learn from us today?
I'm gonna kind of go in a slightly different direction for a second, because this has been on my mind, and we did discuss this prior to recording. We pre-discussed. I'm going to go there, and only because this has been on my mind, I'm curious as to what people are thinking, and I'm sure things will have changed tremendously by the time anybody even watches or listens to this, but that's okay, because I still want to know. So this whole idea of fear, this whole like topic of fear, I'm a little bit obsessed with, because I feel like the root of all problems leads to fear. That's kind of my feeling. You know,
100% true. And why before you get into it, I want to know why this is so exciting to you.
I know,
like, because you're such a positive person. So, and I'm going to say this, and this is my guess, but I think you'll tell me even more, is that you love life and freedom and flow so much that when something is kinking the hose, like fear, it just drives you out of your mind.
It does. And I'm not saying I'm immune to fear. I love you for saying that. And I experience fear daily, you know, in some way, shape, or form. So, and I think I'm really curious about it, because I want to learn how to, as much as I can, eliminate it. And I do think, you know, I think all of us were having this human experience because in a way to work on that fear thing, as we continue to chip away at it, we continue to evolve and grow toward whatever it is that we're going toward in a good way. But I think I love it because I think, to me, if we can conquer whatever fear, is sort of ailing us, let's just say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we can get to living a better life. And I think that's what excites me, is this whole idea of, because a lot of times we're like, this, this hurts, or, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, and we can't figure out why, or maybe we don't even try to figure out why, we just live with it. And it's like, oh no, it's just, but I love that we can map it back to fear, because that means there's a solution. And I think that's why I love
there we go.
Topic.
That's the mapping it back to fear. And then if it's fear, there's a solution. I love it. Okay. So let's talk about, because yes, there's certain aspects of my life that are steeped in fear, others that are fear-free. Let's walk ourselves. I mean, not only this will be helpful to me, but I'm absolutely sure that it will help at least one other person. Let's talk about how fear gets, sorry, there's a man coming up to my, there's a man putting poop in my garbage can. I'm like, okay. That happens in California. Just come and put stuff in your garbage. And he looked at me and waved at me. I'm like,
that is awesome. I'm just going to put poop in your garbage.
I'm just going to put stuff in your garbage can, because that's what's going to happen. And,
it's so neighborly.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's okay. I was just wondering, and, people, I've done it too. So it's
that's
okay.
good.
All right.
He's cleaning up the poop though. And that's important.
This commercial break is brought to you by garbage. Okay.
Doggy bags
and garbage. So, okay, what are we saying here? So we're saying that, okay, so map us back. How do we get the fear eradicated, or let's say,
how do we get to the root of fear of it?
Well, let's think about fear. Okay. Is fear an energy? Is it a thought? Okay. Thoughts are energy, right?
Okay.
So how do they take root, and how do you get them out of you without growing them?
That's a great question. I think first, okay, I am a believer in looking at it in the face. I just am. And I don't think that we necessarily, because I know we talked about this in a previous podcast about how we don't really feel like we have to necessarily spend so much time looking backward and kind of pulling it apart and all this stuff. I don't think that's necessary unless it is necessary. Maybe for some people it is, and that's fair. Right. If it's a real traumatic thing that was just, where the mind just blocked it and we can't remember it, maybe it is worth digging, right?
There's a lot of, we'll say, the super traumatic stuff, see a therapist. You need that, hands down, just go process that some more.
Yes.
But when it's general life BS.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Just like these programs that have,
especially the privileged white problem. Oh, I'm so afraid. I'm like, really? So it's not a problem.
But you bring up a great point, because here's the thing. And kind of what you said in the very beginning, it's not about the thing. It's not about what our lives are supposed to look like. It's not about the thing that brings us these feelings of anxiety and stress and fear. It's the feeling itself. So let's just say, and who was I talking to? Oh, I was talking to Greg. Is it Greg? Oh yeah. He has one of his staff people. He's awesome. He works so hard. He's really good at what he does. He works, all hours. He'll travel, 50% of his job is travel. He's got a family, he's got kids, he's got a wife, and he works really hard. This guy's in his 50s, maybe close to 60, and he's still going. And he loves his family. It's not like he's trying to get away from his family. He's not one of those, right? And I asked Greg, I'm like, what is it? What's the secret there to this guy? Because he's always happy too. Or, I've heard him on the phone a few times, and he just always seems upbeat, even when there's everything's falling apart at work.
It's all melting.
He's like, oh, I'll fix it. Don't worry. Yeah. And Greg said, well, he's basically a Vietnam War survivor, and I'm like, oh, and he goes, so everything's relative, right? So he came over here, and this, no matter what life in this country in this, year or day and age gives him, it's way better than what he was experiencing in Vietnam. Like, that's fascinating. So for him, for me, if I had a job like that, I would be miserable probably and be complaining all the time. And, but I also don't have war as a comparative, sort of thing. And so I think it's all relative. It's like, for this guy, he is feeling kind of up here most of the time. Whereas, let's say, like, I don't know, something that's seems way smaller than his job in terms of, when we think, why are you complaining? Like for me, I've got, a part-time job that I complain about here and there. Sometimes
it's horrible.
Oh. I probably complain more about my job, my part-time job. That's like, I don't have to travel. I have super flexible hours. Yeah. I never have to go into an office. I don't have to do anything. It's awesome. And yet I complain more than this guy probably complains. And so it's really the feeling. It's not about the external things that are happening. It's more about, how am I feeling? And so if I continued to, if I truly did complain as that much and all the things, I would have a much better chance at developing some sort of ailment or whatever, compared to this other guy who has a seemingly far more stressful job.
Right. So it's like the resistance that the person has, or lack thereof, no resistance, the flow to whatever they're experiencing, whether it's their job or their relationships or their health. How they perceive it creates their non-resistant or resistant thoughts, which then create a block in energy, essentially.
Yes, well said.
Okay, I'm just trying to map it back.
Yes.
So if I think about things that, let's say you have a health condition that you're like, I don't want this health condition. It doesn't matter. Everybody's got some health condition at some point, right? So most people, when you have health condition, they're like, this is bad. And there's some worry, or at the very least, annoyance. But, depending on what it is, there can be levels of fear. So a person could take the approach of, oh, okay, that's just a signal from my body that I need to adjust something. What should I adjust? I'm going to adjust that. And so I know I'm going to be able to adjust that. So I'm going to feel stoked and positive that, like, my body gave me a signal, and then I'm going to change something, and then my body's going to be healthy, and that's going to be awesome. And they can just kind of get excited about it, kind of like, oh my God, thanks, body. Like, you're amazing. You like totally told me, like, woman, stop with the, 3 bags of sugar a day or whatever, right? Please God, nobody be eating that much sugar, but I'm sure there are people that do. So they're like hummingbird people. And so, but most people, and myself included, you give me like health issue, and I'm like, no, like I'm falling down
a 30-story
30-story building hole of darkness. And you just hear me going, like the entire way. The friends are like, oh my God, she's still meowing about this, still falling down the hole, and it's endless. And so that's how I react, just if we're being honest. And so then then freak out, run around, generate more fear, freak out more, talk, freak out. Like, it's a fabulous little chart that I made, a flow chart. Go in a circle of fear in different ways. But then what I should have done, because I heard, I got a call from a person that I hadn't talked to for like 6 years. And I knew this person back when my health issue was kind of at its peak. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like, has anything changed since then? And I was like, okay, yes, but not as much as it should have. And I went, okay, so what did we learn? And what we're talking about right now is this exact thing, where if you don't really interrupt your cycle of fear and get into a different non-resistant thinking mode, you're just going to either stay or get worse, in whether it's a relationship issue or a financial issue or whatever, a work to money ratio issue, or, you know, living your life purpose issue, whatever it is. And so what I'm getting at this conversation is that I really need to like reframe all the topics of my life, even the ones of like, you're getting old. Like you cannot stop that one. And I did reframe that. I'm like, no, I'm getting smarter, faster, just because I may look like the crypt keeper in a few years time. But you never know. But I'm
folks,
like,
she's actually 120 years old.
I'm actually
and this is what she looks like. Yes. And this is what she looks like.
But like, even if I look like I age, I'm like, that doesn't mean that everything else cannot get infinitely better. Like everything could. Like you could literally get more energy, because there are chi masters who can do that. You could have more purpose and fun and empowerment and meaning, and, you know, the list goes on. I'm like, so, but when I first started aging more and the signs of menopause kept coming, and I'm like, no, you know, back down the hole. And I was like, and I saw other friends doing the same thing. And I was like, wait, I don't want to do this. I don't want to keep going in just this dark hole of, no, I don't want to age. I'm like, no, you do want to age. Age is a privilege.
Oh, nice.
Like,
I love that.
Yes. And so, so I'm long-winded in saying I caught that one and reframed that faster than I thought I would have. Because I was just like, jumping off the cliff, and I was like, wait, no, don't do that. Like, this is not helping anything. But there are way other subjects in my life that I need to do the reframing with. And I think you were talking about your sort of like the work to money, you know, ratio thing. And so that might be obviously an area that you can pick. Mm-hmm. So tell me, now that I've babbled for
I love that. It's a great
infinite time, you speak.
it's a great, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that, including myself, you know, because we universally get older. We universally, you know, well, maybe not universally, but I feel like most of us probably experience more physical pain as we age versus when we were like, you know, in our teens and 20s. Not all of us, but most of us. And then there's the fear that sets in, oh, it's just going to get worse, you know, mm-hmm. as we get older. And I love this idea of, you're right, getting older is a privilege. And, yeah, I mean, we all have these things that so I think the thing is identifying, okay, we have these kind of built-in, and they're not necessarily built-in, but they feel like they are built-in things that cause us emotional pain, discomfort, whatever. And getting underneath that and saying, okay, what's the base fear that's causing that?
Nice.
Right. And that if we can get there, you know, that's kind of step one, is identifying, kind of stopping, acknowledging that feeling of anxiety, or because I think a lot of times, and I do the same thing, a lot of times there's sort of there can be this kind of, it's almost like a annoying buzz in your ear, but it's mm-hmm. more of an annoying feeling, you know, that you kind of walk around with this anxiety, stress, and it's low enough where you've lived with it for long enough where you just kind of have lived with it and you ignore it.
Right.
And so you don't do anything about it and you don't change your life. But when you stop and you actually say, okay, I am feeling this way, let me figure out what kind of thoughts happen in my mind that kind of amplify that feeling. Because
is that what you mean by facing it when you
said
before you face
exactly.
it? Okay.
So yeah, mm-hmm. I think you have to stop and really acknowledge the feeling, and then you have to dig. That's where you kind of do a little bit of digging, where you're like, okay, let me map this feeling to either the thoughts, which is probably usually the case, right? And then the thoughts, why do I have these thoughts? Where, you know, and who knows, it's different for everyone. Like for you, okay, there's
cultural conditioning is huge.
Yes.
Then there's family. It's, you know, like normal, most of these thoughts, right?
Exactly. The way you were brought up, the kind of household you grew up in, the cultural conditioning, you're right. Society we grow up in, the, you know, there's so many different reasons. And so look at it, you know, and then I think once you kind of can get to a point where you really see where it comes from, or, you know, can identify the fear and put it into words, perhaps you don't necessarily have to, but it might be helpful. Then you can realize, oh my God, it's almost funny when you realize this is just literally a thought and a belief.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
You can't
it's
touch it.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. When you kind of, and you really, and then, and that's a lot of, that's awareness. That's what that is becoming aware.
Right.
And I know, yeah, go ahead.
You're the death queen. When I say this, I mean it in the most loving way. But I think many fears come back to death.
Yes.
At least in the health sector, or I'm going to die before living my life purpose, or, if it's about your kids, if they die or I die, or like death is sort of, I think sometimes when you start really drilling down to these things, you get a little more like, ooh, that leads to death. And those of you, I have you and my other friend, Brian, who will also be a guest. You guys are absolutely not afraid of death. And I always worry you're going to leave the planet because you're so excited about what's going on the other side. I'm like, no, stay. I need you here. Whereas I know that I'll be so fine when I'm dead, but I really feel like it would be a huge waste if I died sooner. Like, I'm like, no, but I'm awesome now. I'm like, yeah. So it's more of like, what a waste, like that feeling. And then because the actual dying part, you'll be dead and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So that's not what I'm afraid of. But anyway, since you're the death queen, and I think everyone has a particular, like I have my flavor of fear of death, and everybody has their flavor of fear of death.
Yeah.
So maybe there's like 10% of fears, or I don't even know the percent because it could be the other way. But a portion of fears are just the death fear.
Yeah.
And then the other fears are like, oh, then I'm going to lose all my money. I'm like, yeah, but you won't. And if you do, you'll be fine. Like you can kind of talk yourself out of lack. I think lack is one that, like, if you really sit and talk about it, like, you can kind of face that one and kind of get out of it. Or what are some other ones that aren't fear of death? There's fear of lack.
Fear of lack.
Loneliness.
Loneliness. Lack is a huge one because I feel like that kind of
lack is loneliness, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it covers it all, right? Like fear of not having enough money or friends or love or
choices.
Choices or like lack is huge because I have a fear. So, when I think of, I have a fear, I turn into an angry monster beast when
we definitely want to see.
It's totally, I promise you'll probably see it at some point. When there's too much human activity around me, I'm like, and I think and it took me time to figure out why I would turn into this angry monster person. And it was really the fear there when I dug enough, the fear there was the fear of not getting my own space and time because my energy levels would plummet. And it's like,
so watch the microphone. It's hitting the,
is it? Okay.
The zipper.
Hitting the zipper.
Careful.
All right. Move the zipper. Okay,
Move
guys.
The zipper.
Move the zipper. So
move the zipper.
So I was starting to see myself, like I'd kind of almost conditioned myself. It came to a point where sometimes it would be like one type of person that would even enter like I'd be alone and then all of a sudden the phone would ring and I'd see who it was and I'd immediately get angry. It's like, whoa, what? That's ridiculous. Yeah. And that all kind of boiled down to this energy drain that I would feel, and then I'd be exhausted, and then I wouldn't have energy for the things that I really wanted to do, all because I had an experience, or several experiences throughout life, which I didn't realize until later in life that I was walking around exhausted all the time. And it was because of I wouldn't allow myself enough space, alone space, to really recharge my battery. But in any case,
you kind of map that back to, like, you had fear of lack, and what the fear of lack was actually, I'm going to lack energy.
Yes.
And because your behavior was such that you were depleting yourself, mostly because you just needed more alone time.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So and I want to take a second here to kind of go, super fascinating, because some people might go, well, I need to map about how I feel about this person or stuff. And you were really smart going, no, it's like this general thing of like people bad. And then your choices are, do I hate people? No, I mean, they're all
I think
right.
so.
All right.
All right.
But you figured out that really the problem is that you needed your energy. And when you had enough energy, then you could be more selective on what you wanted to do with your time,
That's
etc.
right.
So it's a really, because a lot of people in that situation, when, their family, a lot of stuff's going on or whatever, there's a lot of ways you could get distracted from what's really bothering you. And so I'm
Yes.
excited that you were able to really figure out that it was just you needed time with you.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, it took me a long time. I mean, I'm older. And, let's be honest, like I was
You're only
born this
85.
way. I'm only 85.
I know
Come on.
your skin is amazing.
I know, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, this is something that I was born this way. And so even as a child, I remember kind of going into what we like to call the fugue state.
I totally forgot about the fugue state.
Fugue state.
Yeah,
And kind of
state.
imagine, that in like the cartoons where the swirly thing in the eyeballs, it's just like someone staring and they just kind of go somewhere else. And I feel like I spent a lot of time growing up and like, even in college especially, and only because you're around. I mean, I lived
constant
on campus, you're constantly around people. So it's like a lot of it's a blur, not because I partied a lot, just because it's like
you're in a fugue state.
I was in a fugue state. Yes. You build up some sort of defense. And then, you think, oh, maybe it's lack of iron, that I'm always tired. Maybe I'm not getting enough sleep. You think of all these reasons. You go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, I don't know, whatever the doctor tells you.
Useless. The doctor says, I am useless. Give me money.
Yes. No, here's some medication. Doctors, go just drink more caffeine. You're fine.
God love you.
No, just kidding.
Yeah. Unless you broke your leg.
Right.
Yeah. So you were like really doing this for years. It sounds like you really, didn't have, and then you were like, okay, do I take iron? Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with it. Tell me.
Well, you were my boss. You hired me.
Oh, that's right.
Remember how angry I was at work a lot?
You were an
Remember, like I was an angry woman. Like I was like, like you'd ask me to do something and I'd immediately get like tense. And I'm like, is it because I don't like to be told what to do? But wait, she's my boss. Like what is not that any of these things were really conscious at the time, but it was like this default setting where, and it wasn't just it was like people would walk up to my desk and want to talk and I'd immediately kind of do this thing, it's like, oh my God. And I purposefully asked for a cube, like that was around the corner away from.
I remember where your cube
people.
Was. I'd have to find you.
And then I didn't know it then either. It was just sort of this habit that I had created over many, many years. And where I just was like, I would tense up and then I'd walk out of work every day feeling emotionally violated, and I'd go home and I wouldn't really have a whole lot of energy for my kid, or like I'd go home and my kid was with his dad and I was grateful because I was like, oh, thank God I can just, and then really it was human design that I think that's why I hung on to human design, that alerted me that you have the type of energy that really does require a lot of time to yourself. You're not like most of the rest of people in the world. And I'm like, oh, this was so helpful. And oh my God, it was just hugely helpful.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the benefit of things like human design or astrology or Myers-Briggs or you name it is because if we tuned into ourselves, we would just be like, I don't like this and I'm going to be different and not do this thing. But instead, we're culturally conditioned to just be like, do
what everybody else is doing. Totally.
Do what everyone else is doing.
Yes.
And so then we gravitate towards these other tools to give us permission to be the person we already know we are.
Yes.
And also gives us clarity too, because I think it helps you, give it some framework of thought of like, oh, okay, I get it now instead of but I think so much of this stuff one could intuit, like people who are not into this stuff at all can intuit their own needs and predilections and all this kind of tendencies. But I think at least for me, this kind of stuff is super helpful because you so want to fit in, you so want to belong, you so want to keep up, and when you're like a kind of person that can feel everybody else's feelings, and needs their own time. Like if you're empathic or just one of those people that just really introverted and needs their own energy field and nothing else, it's really important to find an excuse to give yourself that, whether it's astrology or human design, or just, darn it, I'm just going to do life the way I want to do it. But I think that fear of it, back to the fear things, back to the fear of lack of belonging, lack of connection, lack of fitting in. And you can also be at work. I'm starting a job for a company. They work on people, because everyone has different working styles. There's bias towards, it's like, my work is trying to solve for this, but as a company, but there's a bias towards people that are really introverted.
Interesting.
Or a bias against, right? Like, so, if you're really engaged and really a people person and super involved and work really hard, you're better.
Yes.
But a person who's really introverted, who gets their work done, team player, but just, whatever, you're totally going to get bias against. That is, because they're like, you need to be more like this group. It's like, no, this person contributes, and they contribute in their way, and the job we hired them for is done well, and that kind of stuff. So it really extends everywhere, is what I'm trying to say. And so it's really difficult to go against the group. And so I think that's where fear comes up, is I'm not going to fit in, or I'm going to stand out.
Yes.
One of those two things, which I think is one of your number one, like, I don't like it, like the standing out part.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? It's true. You're absolutely right. And it is interesting. Like, you going back to what you said about culture. I mean, there's a corporate culture that really does push this idea of teamwork and, and communication. And you're right, kind of caters more to the extroverted type of personality. That's really interesting. Yeah,
it is. Well, it just makes it, I think the headline with that is, be really aware of what your culture is asking for you and what your body's asking for you. And if they don't overlap, prioritize yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you. So there are two ways you could go. You could either find the culture that you fit into, or try to change, try to educate those that you are working with and for,
I think run away is really the best.
Run fast and hard. Fight or flight. Every time.
And so sort of to kind of close in, not close the show necessarily, but close a little more in on our fear mapping, because I think this is a little bit longer of a podcast, but I feel like if we really kind of leave ourselves with a, like, okay, map back your fear, or map back what's getting you hung up, right? What's blocking your flow. And most of the time, it's either fear of death or fear of lack or banishment of some kind, like it's, I think lack is a big bucket, just like it is a big bucket.
Yeah.
They're sort of the same at the end of the day, but lack is, banishment, humiliation, not enough, where you're not going to necessarily end up dead. Like, right. So there's fear of death. Sorry, I said fear before. I just meant fear of death. So fear of death or lack. Lack is sometimes worse than the fear of death.
Yeah, because you still got to live.
Yeah, and the culture that you live in. So let's say you're an American. Well, geez, our culture is really dysfunctional when it comes to that.
It doesn't support.
It's. I'm going to just go on a limb here and say it's a kind of greedy culture.
Absolutely.
Whereas there's not a lot of color. Even other European cultures don't behave. Every culture is different, right? They all have their strengths and weaknesses. I love America. I love being here. And one of the things that, it's more is better. More. And that's not necessarily true, because balance is where it's at. Just ask your body.
Yes.
More broccoli after you've had a healthy serving of broccoli is not good.
Not necessarily good. Yeah. Some simplicity. Exactly. Yeah. Simplicity, I feel like, is, in we don't need all the things that we have access to. We don't need more clothes. We don't need more, food. We don't need more
plastic stuff.
We can wear
whatever.
plastic.
No, we don't want to wear plastic.
Oh, we don't.
So we don't. No.
Oh,
No, Erica. No
I'm just
plastic.
repeating.
Yeah. Just say what I say. That's the podcast.
I'm just going to say what she says.
Yeah. We say everything twice. But it's like the fear, basically the idea is don't let the culture dictate your fear. Like if you have a fear, make sure it's your fear.
Yes. You know what?
Because you're going to be human, but don't let the greed get in your grill. Don't let the culture's fears be your fears. Let your fears be yours alone.
So when at my college or my master's like dissertation thingy, which I never actually had to present, which was awesome. I don't know why, but
good manifest.
Maybe it wasn't good enough. I don't know. But anyway, it was all about no, I did. I mean, it was undergrad, my final, whatever it was. Who cares? It doesn't matter, does it? It was all about my how the media plays such a powerful role in dictating kind of the collective opinion, and how dangerous that is, and how we really should like take a look at that and exactly what you're saying. This is why, watching too much news or reading too much, what's going on, or if you're going to do it, great, but just do it from the observation part of your, versus the decision making.
Yeah.
And understand that this is just somebody else's opinion at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
It's just someone else's opinion. You have just as much power. You have more power to develop your own opinions for your life. And that's up to you. If you want to jump on the train of somebody else's, opinions, that's your choice. But I guess what we're saying, what Lisa's saying is, you choose you over your culture. If they're kind of going in different directions, the whole, the idea is to make choices based on what's best for you, and your body knows it.
Well, it's because infinite, if we go we haven't really gotten spiritual today, but if we're going to go spiritual for a minute, infinite intelligence has created every single thing. So your access to the truth for yourself should be focused inwardly and to try to connect with that, which is difficult. It's not the easiest thing you have to learn how to do that because we're so used to connecting to the group and the pack and what does the pack think? And, that makes sense. But if you can take a moment to realize you're doing that, that's a big step. You don't even have to like connect with God to find out the answer. You just be like, oh, I think I'm more concerned with what this group thinks right now about me than what I think about me. Interesting. Do I want to keep doing that? And sometimes it's yes, I just want to fit in. I just want to go with the flow there. And you're like, that's not wrong. It's just do it with awareness.
As long as exactly do it with awareness, and as long as it's not, negatively affecting your, the course of your life. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes we make that choice because we are interested and just want to learn and observe, and then we walk away from that experience, whatever it was, and we make a different choice or whatever.
Yeah, you're here to experience. Yes. So you can't really do it wrong.
Yes,
you can just do it more flowy, more flow-gettery. Or less flow-gettery.
That's right. Yes, that's
and
right.
That's okay. You can kink the hose, unkink the hose, kink the hose, kink the, that's really all it is. And so if we were sort of to say the homework, the bullet point is realize that if you want the flow in your life, you want to look at how you're thinking and map those fears and reframe those fears, reframe those situations, whatever they are. So that's like one bullet point. What's the other bullet point? I feel like there's more than one. And
I know there's so many. Well, you kind of touched on this idea of, fear. I mean, it really does boil down to fear.
Right.
I was going to
practically every day you were saying.
What we can do practically every day is what you said.
Well, or is if I were to give myself homework, I'd be like, okay, what's the most unpeaceful part of your life?
Yes.
And try to go reframe that.
Yes. I think that, you're right. I think for me, it might be, staying aware of, like, really kind of tuning more into what's going on inside of you. I think that the step one would be get more in touch with the feelings and emotions that are happening inside of you, because that's what it's sometimes when we don't have the contrast, if we're always feeling anxious, we forget that that's a feeling that we don't have to have, because we're just so used to it. We just assume it's a part of us, and we don't become conscious about it. We're just like, okay, I'm just going to always be anxious, and then we make all of our choices from anxiety. We have all of our experiences with this kind of anxiety. People can feel it around us. People know, and maybe we've pushed people away, not on purpose, but because, we're feeling super anxious, and people are like, oh, run, or whatever it is. And we could have had a better experience but for me, the first thing would be to really get in touch with what's really going on inside, and that means kind of, am I feeling in this moment? Like, what am I feeling? Am I feeling calm? Wow, good. This is a new feeling. I don't always feel calm. I usually feel something else.
What is this devilry?
What is this
calmness?
Or, for those of us who often feel the happy or the calm or the joy, we're human. There are probably still moments of, no matter where we are, I guess there's always something to get better at, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So become aware of what's going on inside of you. And then step two for me would be, okay, what is that thing that I want to change in myself? Okay. So hold on to that feeling that's uncomfortable, and then try to map that back to what was the experience that I just had? What was a thought that was just going through my head that triggered that feeling? What was that?
Yeah.
And then kind of, okay, why? Like, was it that my boss, did I just walk out of a meeting where I felt like I was reprimanded, or that or did I just have did I just have a weird situation? I don't know, whatever it is,
just identify what's blocking your flow and get through it as quickly as possible to generate the good feeling. Because my dog is going crazy with me.
I hear that.
You can hear.
And then
sorry, everybody.
That's awesome.
I know, it's actually super
earthquake.
It's ridiculously funny. So in closing, I guess I would say the key is to, okay, we got to put this on camera. We're gonna do stuff.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to go, Mom.
Okay, no. Just we're closing the show. Okay, he wants to be part of the show. So in closing the show,
be good to your dog.
Be good to your dog. Change the framework to think. Remember the don't fall down the hole. Reframe it to make it work for you, and put those, like, figure out what's bugging you. But spend 5 minutes on that, and spend 15 minutes on the forward, like, what do I want to be feeling about this topic? Yeah.
How do I want to be feeling? And then, hey, if it's a situation that you can change or do better next time, then you have the information there, and you can just do better next time.
Right. And if not, then you'll do better the time after.
Then you'll do, exactly. That's awesome, because life gives you infinite amounts of experiences to really just play with.
Yeah. It's like, just mold the goodness. Well, craft yourself a good old life there. Hey. Okay, so everybody, thanks. In closing, we loved having you on the show. Okay, so so thanks for joining us on Flow Getter. Okay, and I gotta stop doing that, because that's just going to drive.
That is awesome. Oh my God, it's so fun.
Thanks everybody for joining us today on Flow Getter. We really appreciate your participation in your thoughts on our comments, and you can email us, go to our website, do all the things that make internet people happy. You know what they are. Buy the stuff, click the buttons, whatever. That's how the algorithm
Share
works.
the things.
Share the things. Tell your friends. And we are really excited to hear what works for other people. We always love hearing about great stuff. And we also love taking questions. So give us your questions, and we'll try to answer them in future casts. And Erica, you are a lovely being. It's so wonderful to speak with you today.
Aren't you?
And my dog is growling. And my dog is growling. Okay, and with that, we're going to say Adios.
Sayonara.
See you next time.